The dismissal document that was claimed to have been signed by the chief of police, the signature there that is put there is questionable. Because the union had to look into the signatures because they have been working with the chief of police. But that signature is a different signature.
Hello and welcome back to the Hope Revolution podcast. I am more than overjoyed once again to have you as part of this platform. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe and connect with us. I've actually decided to say I'm not going to mention and give out the shoutouts anymore. Instead, I'm going to write them continuously on the episode. So if you're wondering as to whether are you part of this week's shoutouts, you need to watch the episode from the beginning to the end. Remember, this podcast is being shot at Mano Media. We do podcast production. If you want to produce your new podcast, maybe 2026 is the year for you to start your own podcast. Reach out to us, contact us on the number below so that we can be able to assist you. My name is Mraro and I'm your host for today for the Hope Revolution podcast. This is where the revolution begins with you and I, listening to these matters and issues that are brought forth to us, learning from them, and also being able to help those that come to the platform. Yes, we're sharing painful, sad stories. At times, we're sharing stories that are heart-wrenching. And we asked that these episodes do not be shown to anyone below the age of 18 so that we can then protect our children. If you feel you want to reach out to the platform and share your story as well, don't hesitate to contact us on the number below. We are more than willing to hear your story and also be able to connect with you and give you the platform to share your story with the multitudes. Now, for today, I've got a sister of mine who decided it's very important for her to come through to the platform and also share her story. Sisu kunjani?
Siyaphila bhuti wami kunjani?
Sikhona. Ithi ngicela ngibonge ngokuthatha ixesha mayixhosa ixesha lakho ukuba uze apha uzosishare istori sakho. Mhlawumbe singathi usisi ubani?
Thank you so much bhuti wami for having me as well. Ndinguphathiwe Ndleleni.
Okay.
So with social media people know me as Pet Mama Duna Ndleleni.
Oh, nice.
Originally I'm from the Eastern Cape in a rural area called Pedi.
Okay.
Engqushwa.
Okay.
That is where I'm coming from. I have 2 siblings.
Okay.
2 brothers. Right now we were 4, but our elder sister passed on.
Okay.
So I'm in the middle of the 2 gentlemen.
Okay.
So there's one that I'm following, and then there's my younger brother,
the younger one, yeah,
who is here in Gauteng with me. We are here in Gauteng.
Okay.
I think this is my 20th year, or if not 21 years now, being here in Gauteng.
Okay.
I'm a mother.
You are Gautengaling.
Yes. I'm here now. I have a home here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but originally I'm from the Eastern Cape.
Yeah. Tell me about your upbringing in the Eastern Cape.
Well, growing up in the Eastern Cape, it was I think it was it's one of the great experience I cannot share. I cannot trade with anyone. I'm a village girl.
Okay.
Even now, I'm still a village girl. So we grew up, we were raised by my father, who used to be a police officer during apartheid.
Okay.
And then my mom was a cleaner in a hospital. So we were raised being 4 kids. And when we grew up, our elderly sister was being trained as a nurse at the time.
Okay.
So I would say out of all of us, we grew up being taught respect.
Okay.
Thought that there's no work for a boy or a girl. And the people where I'm coming from, they can relate that before you even go home to our father, you need to know very well what you have to say there. That's the kind of a person that that's the environment we grew up with. We shared our parents, you know, because my father had that strong character. So even the cousin brothers from Transkei, we are in the former Ciskei.
Okay.
So in the former Transkei, they would take their kids to say, Maduna, our kids, they must be raised by you.
Yeah.
Because they know that
Okay.
there's not going to be boyfriends and girlfriends
Yes,
there.
yes.
So we used to share our parents, even from my mother's side. My mom was assisting the younger sister to raise the grandkids.
Okay.
So yeah. And up until they grow up being old, we shared our parents.
Yeah. So between your mother and father, who would you say character-wise you chose to emulate a little bit more?
I think I'm my father's daughter.
Okay.
I am my father's daughter. My mom has had a very soft spot.
Okay.
I do have a soft spot, but I was raised by a man who taught me that this is not the world of the weaklings.
Okay.
If for anything, the last words that my father uttered was that "Ntombe mnyama ayilolizwe lenkene eli." That was in 1999. So my own father died in my own hands.
Oh, shit.
And I believe that he was transferring his spirit to me so that I'm not just a pushover. That's there's a little bit of my mom, but more I'm my father's daughter.
Yeah. And that's the character of daughters, eh?
Yeah, I should think so.
Daughters
For
and
me,
their
I'm
fathers.
a lot of people, they would say I'm unapproachable,
Okay.
of which that is not true. I'm a born-again Christian,
Okay.
and I love people a lot. But for me, what is black is black. I say it as
You
is,
say it up front. Yeah.
and I cannot compromise the truth, And I will give you a long rope
Okay.
before I can even explode, because I can explode when I have to explode. I believe that my background will never determine my future. I might be from the rural areas of Pedi. I'm a journalist by profession, and here I am. So I speak my mind when I have to.
Powerful. I think you stand as a strong example to any girl child who grows up in a space that seems to want, because with strict parents, with parents that are conservative, the interpretation might be different. Because as a girl child, you may feel a little bit too oppressed or too pressed too tight at some time because of the character of the parent. But for you to rationalize it in this way, to say, I am happy because this was imparted on me. It wasn't applied to me. It speaks to every girl child who's watching this episode feeling that my parents are too strict. So here's a person who grew up in that very same space saying, I have actually learned a lot from that experience. So I think it's a beautiful thing, regardless of what people may say, to say that you come through as a little bit too strong sometimes. I think we need yin and yang. We need that element of strength in the society. So with your brothers, would you say they emulate the same as well? Are they as strong as you character-wise, or did they also decide to go otherwise?
Well, I think we are different.
Okay.
We're different in the sense that me and my younger brother, I think we are more alike.
Okay.
Me and my younger brother. When we are not happy about something, we are open books.
Okay.
You can read it. In fact, even the elder one. But the elder one forgets too easily.
Okay.
You can do something to him, and tomorrow, and you say, Maduna, this and that, he's not there.
Okay.
So for me and my younger brother, we are people who, if something happens, we cannot move beyond without ironing it first.
Okay.
So that history doesn't repeat itself.
Yes.
And I think out of all of them, I'm the Joseph
Okay.
of my family. That is the honest truth.
Okay.
Look, my sister's kids are here as well in Gauteng. All of them, they came to Gauteng. So they came to Gauteng through me.
Okay.
Because I'm the first one to come here. I have an 18-year-old son that sometimes I even wonder when you speak to him and you be like, where is this young man taking this thing from? I think when you raise a kid, because I'm raising my son the same way I was raised.
Okay.
I was raised when you greet somebody. Kuba nesimamva.
Okay.
Morning, ma. Morning, sir. So that is how I raised my son.
Okay.
He is the only son, but he's not a spoiled kid. So he knows what is right and what is wrong. So same goes for me. I'm happy with the teachings of my parents to know right from wrong. And I'm proud of that because sometimes we tend to have peer pressure, and you do things thinking that you want to impress the friends and so on.
That's true.
So basically, for me, whatever that has happened, it has taught me to take the whatever that was done, the trainings, the teachings.
Yes.
So I'm giving them out there to other people.
Yeah.
As is here in Gauteng, I've adopted 20 schools. I go and camp with the kids before they write exams.
Okay.
Because I need to bring the girl child, the pet, out of that kid. We don't want to raise weaklings, Women need to be out there. Women need to speak out. But at the same time, we don't have to overlook the boy child. The boy child needs to know that you are the man of the house.
Yeah.
Therefore, being the man of the house, it comes with the responsibilities. What are those responsibilities?
Yes.
Respect is one of them.
Yes, exactly.
So basically, that's the kind of a person I am. I'm a mother to many. Already, I'm mentoring a lot of women, NPOs, NGOs, and SMMEs.
Powerful.
I'm doing seminars across South Africa. I have raised women of standard with my own knowledge and hands.
That's
so
powerful.
Basically, that's me.
No, that's powerful. I feel like clapping my hands. I'm really so proud to hear the difference that you're bringing forth, and I feel that you could be an asset to many more. And I'm happy that you're willing to stand strong and be the lead, because we don't have those people today. I think moving forward to the actual episode, what brings you here today?
Wow, well, what brings me here today is the issue of my younger brother, Usia. Usia is working for, or was working for, JMPD.
Okay.
Johannesburg Metro Police Department. And last year, he started getting sick.
Okay.
Around June, July. And then he would go and consult with the doctor, given the medical report, then a medical note, sick note. Then you stay at home, you take the medication. However, in August, things went to worse. He's never been sick. He's never been hospitalized. But until on the 15th of August, he reached out to his colleagues to say, look, I'm not well. Then the colleagues came to Tembisa, where he is staying.
Okay.
Indeed, they found him there, and they took him to Zamokuhle clinic or hospital, but it's like a private clinic if it's not a hospital.
Okay.
Then when he got to Zamokuhle, then the health or nurses or doctors who were there, they said, no, the situation is not for this hospital. Then they had to transfer him to a Netcare hospital.
Okay.
So when they were looking for a Netcare around Tembisa, they were fully booked.
Okay.
Then he said, no, take me to Sanwat Park because my sister is there. Then he was taken to Sanwat Park. In fact, apparently, during that process, because he didn't have the medical aid card, so the colleagues are the ones who were facilitating everything with the HR.
Okay.
So the HR gave them the medical aid number. Then they said, no, he's a Netcare client. He can go to Netcare. So in short, he went to Sanwat Park. Then I was called by the hospital. Then I went. And I must say that when I got there, I saw a corpse. You know, when you go into a hospital, when I walked in there, he was at high care at the time. And when I got there, I saw, you see somebody that you know, but who is this person? And it was my younger brother. his is exactly after me. It's only 2 years apart between us. And I got in there. He didn't know me. He didn't know anything. And I met with the doctors, and I had to sign some documents because he was not eating at all. It was a very bad situation. But to cut the long story short, I had to sign all the documents for the procedures to be done on him. So my life and my son's life changed. In the morning, we had to go and see him. In the evening, 6 o'clock, we have to be there. So sometimes I would even ask the nurses to say, can I bath him myself? And I think on the third day, he was moved to ICU.
Okay.
And when we got to high care on the third day, and the bed was made up. In fact, when I was going there, I would say to my son, go first. You inspect it, then I will come afterwards.
Okay.
Because the fear in me was really too much. I was seeing a dead person. I'm not going to lie. Then this time now, he was not there.
The bed is clean.
It's clean.
There's no one.
No one. And the nurses said to me, no, Sissy, don't worry. He's in ICU. His condition worsened.
Wait, would they not call you to notify you of the change of his condition?
I believe that they called. The hospital called, but they couldn't get hold of me.
Okay.
So then I went, and remember, they know that I'm there morning, then I'm there evening. So the nurses said, no, don't worry, go to ICU. He's in ICU. Then I went to ICU, and there he was. Now I had to sign some documents. They had to cut here, they had to do this, they had to do that. Then they had to make sure that he can eat through those pipes and so on. He couldn't even speak.
Yo.
So opening a mouth was a problem on its own. So that was the situation. My brother was like a cabbage, just sitting there. But I must applaud the team, the doctors, the doctor that was working on him, and the nurses, because when we get there, they know that the sister is going to pray. And I would pray. I remember, as a born-again Christian, I remember after seeing this whole mess, when I got home, I took my album and I removed his picture and I put it in the album. And I said, God, because even my nephews were saying, Aikuko, anything. We are waiting for anything.
Yo.
So my older brother at home as well had heard that Aikuko. So now I was under pressure because he was asking, Msutukas, what is happening now? Can I speak to him? And I couldn't do anything because he was in that state. I didn't even want anyone who's going to take pictures, We start seeing the pictures on, social media
viral,
platforms. And then we would I took the picture, put in my Bible, and I said, God, the family has given up. But for me, I know who you are. Right now, ndimfaka kwi garage yakwa moya. Your own garage, because your word is here, your spirit is here. Everything that you breathed is in your word. So ndimfaka up. When they say, even if I didn't want to believe that Jesus raised Lazarus, right now, I can say Jesus raised to Siabonga. Siabonga was gone.
Oh, that's powerful.
He was gone. There's no doubt in my mind. He was gone. He was done for. But for me, I refused to release. I really refused. And his doctor was saying, Sisi, usiya uzoba right. Usiya sisi uzoba right. And the nurses, that way, because there were nurses during the day, there were nurses in the evening. I even wrote to the hospital to say, I applaud the doctor that is leading the team. All of them, they did a great job. Netcare is the best, you know. I'm a client of Netcare as well, but I've never been in that state. But so we normally, we ended up going and visiting. Then the colleagues came to visit him.
Okay.
And I stepped out on the day so that they couldn't come in. Then I went out. Then they said, Sisi, this is not him. What is happening, Kundleleni? They were using the same, they call him like that. Okay. What is happening, Kundleleni, now? And then I remember the lady colleague. She said, you know, our colleagues, when they go to hospitals, they don't come back. And I said to him, this one will come back. This one. He was not saying it in a bad way, but was just saying, we lost so-and-so, we lost so-and-so. Okay. So it's something that has happened.
So they're dealing with the trauma of loss, basically.
Yes, it's what is happening. And by the way, my brother is a security officer.
Okay.
The security officers that were taken to be under JMPD. So he is a security officer under JMPD. So these guys, they came wearing the uniform. And then they said to me, Sisi, can you please ask the doctor to do the letter that will give to HR so that Usiyabonga can be given temporary incapacity. And indeed, the doctor had told me to say, Sisi, we are going to give Usiya 3 months temporary incapacity. And indeed, the doctor did the letters. I forwarded the letters to the colleague. I think 4 days down the line, I'm getting a call now from the HR. Ma'am, where are you? And I said, I'm at home. No, there are people who are coming there. We want you to sign the termination letter.
For what?
Okay. What termination letter? Your brother's termination letter. Now I'm like, wait a minute. What are you talking about? What termination letter? No, we are terminating your brother's employment because your brother is no longer working for JMPD.
Oh.
Now I said, my darling, I cannot sign any termination letter. I was not there when my brother signed the contract. So I don't believe which law that you are using for me to sign the termination letter. I have written to you and I've given you the doctor's documents. And to be honest, nobody responded on the documents that I've sent. For that are saying, Siya is here now. And after that, it was harassment. After harassment, there would be a gentleman that will be calling to say, I'm Sergeant so-and-so from JMPD. We want you to sign the letter. I'm asking, guys, what is it that you do not understand? Can you put what you are saying now in writing? Because I have written, respond to what I've written. No one wants to respond. I remember there was a day they harassed me. I was with another gentleman, a colleague of mine. They harassed me to a level where this gentleman said, no, I'm switching off this phone. And I went and I wrote to them. I copied everybody. And I said, can you please attend to this matter? Because right now, this is traumatizing to me. And as I was busy doing these things, my nephew called me to say, Marcus, these people are calling me now to say I must sign a termination letter. And I refused to sign the termination letter. Why should we sign the termination letter? Then that's where the problem started.
Okay.
Then they did not respond. Nobody responded. Remember now, this person cannot speak. Then I went on social media, on TikTok. I'm not regretful of going to TikTok. I will do it multiple times. I went to TikTok and I put it right there that this is what JMPD is doing to my brother. And I feel, or we feel as a family, their motive is to kill him. And I'm repeating it. Their motive was to kill him. Because I don't care whether there was a case that was there, you wait for a person. And on that day when I did this social media, this video The video sparked, a lot of people started coming out. Mgcini Chwaku, the MMC for public safety here in Johannesburg, reached out to me and said, Sisi, can you please be in touch with me? What is happening? And I went exactly on that same day. I went to Chwaku and I said, Mhlekazi, this is what is happening. I narrated the story. And the MMC said, I do not know of any employee. This was never brought to my attention. But hold on. Let me add somebody in this call. I just forgot, but in my diary, I have the record of who the person was. It's somebody who's superior at JMPD.
Okay.
And the gentleman joined us, we greeted, and then MMC Chwaku said, Mhlekazi, are you aware of this matter? Then the person said, no, I don't know of this matter. Ma'am, can we exchange numbers? Please give me your brother's ID number, their names and the surnames. And then MMC Chwaku's exact words were, can this matter be sorted out effective immediately? By tomorrow, I want a report. That was the MMC. And, okay, everything was cool. I sent the message to the gentleman. I do have it, the proof of it. One thing about my phone, I had set it up so that when a person is calling me, it records.
Oh, automatically.
Automatically.
Okay.
So when you call me, the phone records automatically. So I do have that recording that says, no, I don't know about this. Nobody told me about this, even the superior of JMPD. All right, no problem. I sent the information. Now, in the midst of this thing happening, there's a lady who reached out to me to say, Sisi, I'm from the Imatu Union.
Okay.
Londiwe reached out to me. I'm from the Imatu Union. I don't know which union your brother belongs to, but can you please send me your brother's ID numbers, the name and surname? I forwarded to the lady, to Londiwe. Let's be sure that, or let me emphasize that this is coming from the video.
Okay.
I wouldn't have got anybody else contacting me because my hands were tied. The people that I was trying to reach out to, whom I thought were supposed to help me, the protocol I did follow. So now, this lady is reaching out to me. The lady went and came back to me the following day. Sisi, your brother is a member of Imatu.
Okay.
Then I said, perfect, Sisi. Let's run with the case. Then the lady was updating me. Sisi, this is where we are now. You know, we went to JMPD offices. These people are refusing to give us the information. They are refusing to give us the information. These people are saying, no, your brother was not working for a period of 6 months. Ow, seriously. All right, let me not protect Sia in the process. They went there, they asked for the register. We want to see where Sia was signing and everything. We have been discussing the case. The documents are not adding up.
So they're not aligning with...
No, with their claims.
Okay.
No, they are not aligning with their claims.
So you did actually find his signature having been able to go to work within the 6 months that they were claiming?
There are no signatures. But it's just a blank document.
Oh, okay.
So absent. My brother didn't come to work, you know?
So on that, sorry, I just want to get to the bottom of it now before we move. On that document, it's just the names, because I know on a roster, where like your security would sign in and sign out in the evening, you'd have other people's names there.
No. On what we have, we don't have that. It's only Siyabonga Ndleleni.
Okay.
Then at the bottom, the only person who will sign will be maybe the supervisor.
Okay.
That's it. And it's very funny. So now Londi was trying to get these documents. In the midst of it all, then she got threatened by an assistant director from JMPD. To an extent, she wrote an email reporting that I'm not going to allow my life to be threatened because now we are fighting for our member. I have that correspondence. of which it was never addressed. The issue of her being threatened was never addressed. All right, but that is not why I'm here. But I'm trying to bring to the public exactly what is happening so that people can do their own analysis. And whomever wants to come can answer according to what I'm saying. Then after this, as Londiwe and Thabo and the team were busy trying to work on this one, now I got a letter that says Siyabonga's employment was terminated.
So this letter
Dismissal, in fact,
is addressed to you directly?
is addressed to my brother, the one who's in hospital.
Okay. And it's delivered where? To you?
It's emailed.
Okay.
It's emailed.
To your email address?
To my email address.
Okay.
Remember now, Sia is in ICU, is
Yes.
there.
Yes.
The person who wrote a letter complaining, it is me.
Yes.
And the emails that I've sent, they are there. Addressing the issues that I would like to get answers of. Remember, they invited me to sign. So I want answers from you.
Yes.
Isn't it? You are the one who invaded my space. Asking us, not asking, forcing us to sign. Now I need answers from you. I'm expecting you to give me the answers. So number one, the letter apparently was issued on the 15th of August.
Okay.
On the day when they took him to hospital. On the same day, they took my brother in a JMPD car to Zamokuhle. The HR
Sent the letter.
being communicating with the colleagues about my brother's medical aid. They were busy with the termination letter.
What in that termination letter, what are their grounds for dismissal?
The grounds are that my brother is not going to work, has been absent from work. My brother had there was a disciplinary hearing, which my brother never attended any disciplinary hearing. The only thing that I can put on record is that one of the days where they said they set up a date for my brother to go for a hearing, on that document, they are claiming they gave my brother. There was no date, no venue, and there was no time
Okay.
in the very same document. And on the said date, my brother was at work. If at work they're saying to me, Pat, there's a hearing, I would take it that when my superior sees me at work, they have a right of coming to me to say, Aibo, Pat, you're supposed to go for a hearing.
Yes.
They can even assist me with means of transportation
Yeah.
to the venue.
Yes.
You know, so
Yes.
that never happened. But the bottom line is that on the very same day you take the person who reached out to you to say, I'm not well, and you arrive, you take the person to hospital. On the very same day, you decide to take your decision, because that is what the letter was saying. It was backdated. And remember, we're getting the letter after they had received the doctor's documents. Now they're forwarding me this letter. I don't know this letter, whether it was signed, because to me, the letter was signed in May, according to what I'm seeing. So my brother was dismissed in May.
In May.
Yes, that
And
is what the letter
was
is saying.
only sent in August.
It was sent in August on the 15th. That is what I'm seeing on the letter that was sent to me via email. And you can see now, as it was written on the 5th, they try to temper it now to change the 5 to 8.
Okay.
Now you don't know exactly what is happening there. All right, this happened. My brother is there. Then there was this. Then Imatu did an appeal. Then the appeal date was set to be in December. But in December, it was postponed to the 19th of January. Again, let me put it on record. Until now, Siyabonga is not well. Until now. Then they set it up for the 19th of January. Now, as a family, we decided that Usia must go there. They must see what we are talking about, because now I don't know whether it's as if we are lying to say Usia is not well. So Sia went. Sia went. Sia is not well, even now. And Even the doctors are not happy with Sia because now, instead of him recovering, we were happy because he looked like he's recovering. Then boom, he's going backwards. After all this trauma that they are causing, now he's going backwards. And I must also emphasize that after they sent the letter, the doctor wrote to them to say, Usia is our client and Usia is hospitalized. Usia simbeke under temporal incapacity. I therefore suggest ubana let decision yenu ni rethink about your decision. The letter is that they have it. Nobody wants to listen to it. Okay, Sia went to the case on the 19th. And he was represented by Imatu, 2 ladies and 1 gentleman. And in that hearing, the questions that were asked by Imatu to JMPD, they could not answer. The gentleman said, no, can I please respond to some of the things that we are saying in writing? There are 2 dates that came up.
Okay.
Sia, when he was in ICU, he signed a document. I have the proof here. So I don't know when he signed the document. Being in ICU, exactly on that specific date.
So, wait. This document that he's signing is theirs.
Yes, it's theirs.
And they have it.
It's under the letterhead of
and they're claiming that on that date,
signed.
he signed the document.
On the 18th of August, they are claiming Sia signed the document. It's here on the documents. Sia couldn't speak. Sia didn't even know my name, my own name. This is somebody after me, last born. That's a Kayusi.
Imagine.
They're saying Sia signed the document.
So in response to that claim of having to allegedly sign, what do they say?
From what the union is saying, they said, it's 2 dates, remember? Then it's this one, the 18th of December. Then there's the 7th of January. On the 7th of January, Sia was at home. On the 7th of January, Sia was at home. So the union called me before the case to say, Sisi, Sia signed these documents. On the 7th, I said, if anyone is saying Sia signed the document on the 7th, that person is lying. Sia was in the Eastern Cape in January. I'm the one who booked for Sia to come back from Eastern Cape to Gauteng. And it was after the 15th of January when Sia came back to Gauteng. So how did he sign the documents?
Where did he sign?
Where?
Because when you sign, you also stipulate this is where I was when I signed.
So my brother never signed the document. On the 18th and on that January, my brother never signed the documents. So apparently they said, we withdraw. They're withdrawing now.
What are they withdrawing?
Those dates to say he signed on those days.
So I want to check something. These signed documents, do you have them?
Yes.
On those documents, is it his signature that is there?
We do not know. We do not know. But
the claim is that
it's Sia's signature. One thing that I can say and put on record for South Africans to know, Sia never signed the documents on the 18th and in January.
Yeah.
So whomever signed the document, they forged Sia's signature.
Which in that is it's not that's not a legal approach.
That's a criminal offense. That is a criminal offense, which as a family we are going to tackle it. The other criticality that we saw, the dismissal document that was claimed to have been signed by the chief of police, the signature there that is put there is questionable because the union had to look into the signatures because they have been working with the chief of police. But that signature is a different signature
from the one that
they gave us. Whomever did whatever, where I am seated on my side, fraud has been committed big time. If you can say I signed something when I'm sleeping in a hospital, breathing through pipes, and you say I have signed, and I was not even there, then there are bigger things that you can do. There's no questions about it. I want somebody who's going to challenge me to say, Pat, you are lying. I'm here. If the hospital needs to provide the cameras, they will indeed provide the cameras. Sia did not sign anything. The colleagues of Sia only came. They saw that Sia is there in ICU. So we want to know who signed there as a family.
In the appeal process now, when you are questioning and responding to these claims, do these colleagues come to testify? Are they willing to come forward and say, whatever is happening here is not, a true reflection of what happened? What is their feeling and their involvement going forward? Because they are the ones from the employer's side who have actual visual evidence to say that what's happening is not what really transpired. So what's their feeling about the whole thing?
On the side of the colleagues, I wouldn't know. This is the reason why. On the documents that we have affidavits. We have affidavits that were done apparently by the colleagues. And we are not going to run away from the fact that people nowadays are driven by the stomach. That's a fact. People nowadays are driven by the stomach. So a person, because they're afraid of whomever who is behind this whole thing, of course, because you are trying to save your own job, then it's few pets out there. That's what I can say. It's few pets who can stand for the truth. The other thing that I can put on record is that some of the colleagues, they came to me and they sent in boxes to say, Sisi, please don't disclose us. But what they are doing to Undleleni, it is wrong. I'm telling you, a lot of people came out and they said, Ninga bayeke, Sisi, don't end it. And they told me that there's a certain gentleman who has been doing this in the very same JMPD.
So is this a culture?
It's a culture.
A repetitive?
It is a norm. It's something that they do.
So Sia is not the first one?
No, it's not. And it's not the last one.
So let's
assume that Sia was absent at work because I can see they're saying November, December 2024.
Okay.
Sia was on leave. How do I know Sia was on leave? Sia applied for leave and we talked because at home there was going to be a Thanksgiving for our mother, for our late mother.
Okay.
Sia took leave. But right now, because this is somebody who's not educated, this was somebody, to be honest, they didn't think that this guy was going to pull through. No, they didn't think so. The way they did things, it's like they said, okay, let's do this. We will only argue with them. He won't be there. There won't be anyone to speak, because there are a lot of things that they are saying. And if JMPD was prepared, the gentleman wouldn't have said, no, let me answer in writing. And they were given 7 days. The case was on the 19th of January. The ruling only came back yesterday, the 17th of February. What was being cooked? You know most your story. And in everything that they've given us here, they have not attached the doctor's notes to prove that they are disregarding whatever. His sickness means nothing to them. It's to me, let's assume that Sia was not going to work. So they waited because they charged Sia in June.
Okay.
So Sia came back to work January, February, March, April, May. The person is going to work. That is why they lied about the document on the 7th of January. Because it is questionable. What were you waiting for? And on top of it now, to build their case, they are bringing the warning of 2023. The warning is having an expiry date. as per the Labor Relations Act. It's 3-6 months depending on the merits of the case. But the other thing that I want to know, I've never seen Sia's superiors reaching out to us. They only reached out to us when they were saying, sign the termination. You have employed somebody. You are a superior to this person. Don't you think you need to reach out to the family to say, we feel like, Usia, this is what is happening. We don't like the behavior and so on. And you had to wait. Because now the excuse is, even if Sia was dismissed on the 15th of August, Sia was dismissed, he knew that he had a case. So does it make it right for him to be dismissed whilst ill? Does it make it right?
No.
Because now there was a case. And let me put it on record again. In the findings of Imatu, when they were doing these disciplinary hearings when my brother was not there, the person who was sitting for the case suggested that Sia be given a warning. But this assistant director forcefully pushed and took his own decision to dismiss him. That is the person who was being protected here. They overlooked, because when you call an outside person, a neutral person to say, sit in this case, it's because you want that person to give their own ruling, what they think as a neutral person. Now the neutral person is coming in to say, no, let's give this person a warning. And you go out of your way to dismiss the person, even if he was wrong. Now, my question and what I want to know, because now, part of their ruling now, they're saying, from what we got yesterday, they wrote there that her sister went on social media. And it's really questionable that they're focusing on me going to social media. And they even stipulated here, after several attempts of harassing the family, the sister decided to go on social media. If they had put it in that manner, that was going to be a perfect thing. See, I'm not working for JMPD. Sia is working for JMPD. They came to me and they're blaming him now to say he didn't even reprimand the sister. Come on.
How do you reprimand someone when you are incapacitated?
I mean, really? Exactly. We have people who are running the departments, government departments that are using taxpayers' money, our money, who are doing this bullying, because this is bullying. To me, it is personal. It's a very personal thing now. And it's clear that they don't care about his illness. The doctors are saying this person is ill. The person is in ICU. So how is he going to reprimand me? How? Because I did that being frustrated, being traumatized. So I needed to vent to the people who are going to listen to my side or to our side of the story. I remember when I wanted to do this podcast, it was not allowed because Sia is not well. Because I wanted the whole of South Africa to see the person we are talking about. Because now we are perceived by JMPD as if we are lying. If we were not perceived as we are lying, and if they claim that they are fair in what they did, the medical reports, they're supposed to be here. They are the ones who took him to hospital. So they need to tell us, to show us, to say, yes, we have considered the fact that he has been hospitalized. But it's clear they are not even considering that.
Yes, because aside from the report from the colleagues, which I personally cannot depend on as an employer, because, there are many agendas amongst us as people that work together, I would have taken an extra act to sort of go and validate that, yes, indeed, as the employer, I want to validate that this person is in hospital. So we'll either now try to get in contact with the doctor or the person who was, involved in terms of reporting that. Did they ever try and do that?
No. The doctor wrote a letter. They have the letter. Last time I spoke to the doctor, no, they didn't reach out to the doctor. Remember, the doctor is checking up on Sia. Sometimes I would be complaining to say, Sia doesn't want to eat. Sia doesn't want this. The dietitians as well are saying, okay, ma'am, try this, do this. These are the people who are with us through thick and thin, 100%. it's just that this I cannot say because maybe it can hurt him. When you see Sia, you cannot ask if Sia is sick or not. Looking at Sia's face, especially here, you cannot ask. It is written here. The neck is so swollen, it's so big. To an extent, I was really afraid. I have to take Sia to hospital. I have to do this. I have to do that because for me, the most important thing, it is his life. Even if they do not want him, but they must do things in a rightful manner. You know, you don't want him. It is your home. It is your place. You are JMPD, but do the right thing. Don't just, you know, for us, it is important. We don't have parents. It is only the three of us. So to us, his life matters more than anything. That's an uncle to my son. If you can see even my son's report, he's doing grade 12 now. We can't apply using that report because we're going through so much in that period. So it's a lot of things that they have done. And to put the fact that I went on social media, come on. I wrote to you. I wrote to senior people there. What did they do? They didn't do anything. Instead, they went on to put pressure. And I don't even think they thought that this matter would escalate to this matter, to this level where it is right now. And for me, I do not mind that again we can be called here with whomever will be representing JMPD so that we can set facts. You know, we speak the truth, truth to power. We cannot be in positions of power because we are an assistant director. This is a security guard. So you need now to ill-treat that person because of the power. And your colleagues are protecting you. Because how come an administrator? Because the first person who contacted me from JMPD was an administrator who was very arrogant, pushing me to say, I must do this. And I will keep on saying this. Even if my phone was not recording, when investigations are done, when we want the truth to come out, we can extract the conversation that happened on that particular day. One thing about me, I use the diary very well. I use when they taught me, I diarize everything. At this time, on this particular day, this is what happened. So they cannot lie. They really cannot lie. They know who was calling me. I told them. It's there in black and white. Therefore, you cannot blame me. And you cannot penalize my brother on the fact that the sister went on social media.
Yes.
South Africa is a democratic country. I have freedom of speech, isn't it? You invading my space. You are harassing me. Then this is how I'm reacting. I know that the South African public, they will be neutral people. They are not my family. They are not, those who are not JMPD employees. Or even if they are JMPD employees, they can be able to see what is happening here. What transpired. For instance, now there are a lot of lawyers who are saying, Sisi, let's push this case further. And I'm happy about that. Because should I not done the videos, should I have kept quiet, then this matter was going to escalate.
Yes.
Yesterday, Oniso, I had to do a video where I am addressing the reason why I did the first video in the first place. So it's people running away from the responsibility. And it's people who were thinking that my brother was going to die. No, he's not going to die.
What do you think is the back end motive? What is the real intention?
For me, as I've been saying, it might have happened that maybe Sia was not coming to work. I do not want to be seen as I'm protecting him. But however now, as I am saying, and I'm putting it on record, whatever that they did, they thought Sia was going to be gone. So Sia is not gone. The motive now is to cover the unfair procedures that they've done. They didn't follow the proper procedures. That one is straightforward, it's clear.
Yeah.
If they're saying they followed the proper procedures, number one, what I want to know and I want them to answer, why were they forcing us? Because remember, the doctor gave the incapacity in August Exactly in August, they are pushing us to sign. It's not even 3 months. So I want an answer to that one. 2, why would you go to extremes of forging a signature? If this signature is not forged, it could be there are documents that they have where they asked Sia to sign. And there were blank documents.
Okay.
If it's not forged, what was the reason for that? That is what I would like to know.
Yeah.
Because now they have exposed themselves to say on this day he signed, on that day he signed. Because maybe they know that we have blank documents of Sia here.
True.
It's people who are capable of doing whatever. And they can, the motive is to hide the culprit behind whatever, behind this.
This is so unfortunate.
Yeah.
You would not expect such to happen, especially in law enforcement, because those are the people who look to for safety.
Yes.
I'm sorry to laugh, but it's one of those things that for me are unheard of. And as I'm sitting here, it's so difficult for me to process what you're saying, because it has so many negative impacts on so many levels to everyone who is involved. The one thing that I have now is that whoever was close to Sia now, wherever they are, when they see this, they're going to be very uncomfortable about what was happening, because now the thing is they have to come out and be strong and stand on their feet now and speak for the environment that they want to work in, because in that silence they are sort of perpetuating the culture. So we need to be a community that speaks out, and we need to push that sort of narrative. It really has affected you, as I hear you saying, you and your is it your child, your son?
My son.
In terms of his results and your routine. And that's what ultimately makes, these negative changes to come through. And I'm so sorry to hear about this. And I'm happy that you've got your feet planted and you're fighting headstrong that the right thing here must happen. And maybe to cut you, my question would be, what's the right thing for you right now? If they were to do the right thing, what is the right thing?
Before I can answer that question, yesterday when I came back home, I did the video in my car because I didn't want Sia to hear what I was saying, because now he's with me. And I did the video and I finished it. Then I uploaded it on social media. Then I called him and my son. I said, come, let's sit. Then he came. He can't even walk properly.
Okay.
So he said, Mtase, what is it, Indoni? Then I said, no, let's sit. Then I broke the news. I said, this is what is happening. Then he cried. Remember, he's younger than me. Then I said to him, wipe your tears. Wipe your tears. And I said to him, Moses was sent to God to save the children of Israel. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened. And I said, with your situation, God is trying to do something. There are a lot of people who are abused out there. And they are not speaking up. Just to make an example, there's one lady who reached out to me, being abused in that department by JMPD, and said, Sisi, I'm abused when I wake up in the morning. I feel like a kid who's bullied at school. I find it very difficult for me to wake up and go. And I said to this young lady, go. And one thing that I'm going to ask you, make sure that the grievances are forwarded right now before they plan for you. So it's nothing new right now in South Africa. It is nothing new. And especially on my side. For me, I suffered the same fate that my brother is suffering right now. I did. It's just a story for another day. And the only thing about me, some of the people were even threatening me in their inboxes to say, wena udinga sniper. It's there. Wena udinga sniper. And I want to put it out there to the people of this country. It's either you are going to die in silence or you are going to stand up and speak. One thing that I'm going to tell you, all of us, we are going to die. Umhlaba sizawuganga ngesifuba sithu isiXhosa. Whether we like it or not. And for me, what comforts me, even if I were to die tomorrow, I know where I'm going. My Father in heaven will applaud me. So it doesn't matter whatever they are thinking of doing. We're seeing a lot of people who are whistleblowers being killed. So honestly speaking, man, whatever they that can happen, it's nothing new. But my plea to all the people who are out there, I will be starting my own podcast, by the way.
Yes.
To address issues like this. Because I'm a vulnerable person because of our justice system. Indeed, as we are saying, we were not expecting these things to be happening from the law enforcers. We expect them to protect us. Sia as well is having a family. Whomever was doing this, Sia as well is having a family. Sia as well is having kids. And I just want to put it to that person to say, there is a beginning to everything and there's an ending. You can do it because you are in position of power. And the people whom are working with that person are applauding him, and they can't bring that person to task. But there's a man above all men, God Almighty. He sees everything. But for me and my family, we will get justice for Sia. We will. The fact that people are listening already, the video that I did yesterday, it's on 14,000 viewership. I did it around past 6 to 7. Yes, of course, there are beneficiaries, those who are rejoicing when other people are feeling the pain. We are not the same.
That's true.
So some of us who are coming from disadvantaged families, we didn't just come here in Gauteng. We came to Gauteng because we were failed by our own province, which is Eastern Cape. So we are here to fend for ourselves just like any other person. We are law-abiding citizens. So if we are criminals by speaking up, so be it.
Yeah.
We are not going to be silenced or intimidated by the Goliaths of JMPD. No, we are not.
You are home in Gauteng.
Exactly.
You didn't cross any border.
No.
You didn't go through any customs. You are home. You're just a few hours away. It shouldn't feel like you're in a different country.
Why am I saying that, Put? Is that some of the comments in TikTok, if you can go on my TikTok, you listen to them. Some of the people who are complaining, they are saying JMPD is the West. The people who are coming from this side, Limpopo, they make JMPD as if it's their home. If you are Xhosa Zulu, you will be crucified. It's there. It's not me who's saying there. It's not me who's saying it. It's there. They put it there. So we made now to feel like, you know, the people from Eastern Cape or whatever the case might be. No, this is our motherland. South Africa is our home. South Africa is our future. It's so unfortunate that there's no other country we can run to, you know?
That's
and
true.
We are not going anywhere. We are here in South Africa. We are going to fight this injustice here. There's no other place.
Yeah.
So if they feel they can silence Usia by dismissing him, at first it was termination, but you can see that there was a motive already.
Okay.
The appeals that are being done, they are just being done. We were called to sign the termination letter, right? It was the termination. Now it's dismissal. These are two different things. If you're dismissing him, why didn't you dismiss him from the word go? Now Batasha and Stupa, they are running away, they are hiding to say the sister. Now tomorrow it's going to be the sister took us to the podcast. Let me tell you what I even did. To see that I went to extremes. I went to the journalist group of South Africa I'm not working as a journalist, but that's my profession. I am in that group. I appealed in that group because I was asking for the spokesperson's number. I wanted the spokesperson's number so that I can speak to somebody who's there. They saw that. Even the spokesperson saw it. You are in that same group. You mean to tell me you didn't see it? Right now, if I can open that group, I will see every correspondence that is there. That is written by different journalists.
That's true.
I mean, let us be honest. In South Africa, the vulnerable will remain vulnerable. If you do not have a name, you do not. By the way, I forgot to mention that my dad was a police officer during apartheid. Because of what the apartheid system was doing, my father resigned as a police officer in Port Elizabeth and ended up being an ambulance driver. Some of our parents, when we talk about the struggle, they know the struggle. But we are not, because we are not known, you know? We are not vocal about it. The man resigned because he couldn't take what was being done to the black people of this country in Port Elizabeth. So, really you feel that, mighty God, the vulnerable in South Africa, the poor in South Africa, they are the ones who are oppressed.
Yeah.
We have people here who are mentioned in the Madlanga Commission. Nothing is being done to them. I'm wondering how much Siya was earning to an extent that they couldn't even wait for him. There was a time we had to go to Lancet to take the blood test. That was the time when we heard that the medical aid was terminated.
By the employer?
Yes. It was terminated. And they terminated everything knowing that there's an appeal. You can't terminate things when there are processes that are there. So that's why I'm saying there was a motive already. There was the termination, then dismissal. So all these appeals that are being done, it's just a game.
Yeah. So you terminate someone's medical aid knowing that they are in this critical ICU situation,
Yes.
kind of like.
Yes, they did. If they feel like I'm lying, Sanwat Parknet case there, they can go there. They can go and ask. They will find Siya's records there. Siya is still sick up until today.
So back to the question of them doing the right thing.
The right thing for me might be the wrong thing. For me, I don't want to lie. I was hoping that Siya will be reinstated at work. He deserves to work just like any South African, just like any person. I was thinking that he would be reinstated. But it is very clear. The gods of JMPD are not going to make that happen. So it doesn't matter what we want as a family. That is what we're hoping for even yesterday. Not yesterday, on the 19th of January. It's what we're hoping for.
In this situation, does Siya want to go back there? Noting everything that has happened now up until this point, does he still have the will to go back to that place?
Even though we haven't spoken that much, as I'm saying, he was so emotional yesterday. He was hurt. So I couldn't go that much because my focus now is his health, as I'm saying.
True.
And I ended up saying, at least you have a roof over your head. You are not in somebody's place, you know. You are staying with your own your blood sister, you know. So don't worry about whatever that is happening. We are here as your family. We love you. If you cannot do it for yourself, do it for us. The only thing that I want now is for Siya to get well and be the Siya that I know him to be. As we are 3 right now at home, even including our cousins, the strongest is Siya. If there's anything that has to be done at home, Siya is that person who's hands-on. If there's something in the ceiling, Siya would fix it. If there's anything, even in my house, whatever there's, even right now, there were things that he was seeing in my house. Then he said, no, as I'm sitting here at home, I will start doing something because we want him to exercise. Sometimes I take him and we walk around.
Okay.
Just for him to regain, his strength. So for me, the most important thing is for Siya to get well. Everything that is happening, it has affected him. It has affected his health. He is not I can bring him, you see him. There are times where the doctor, I would take the picture to the doctor to say, this is him, and his doctor will even speak to him on the phone. They will be laughing because we want people who are going to bring that positive energy to him. So that's the most important thing now.
Yeah.
We never discussed about, would you like to go back to work? Of course. I should think, of course, everybody wants to work, unless we have a plan B. He didn't see this one coming. It has happened, and it happened. We have labor laws in this country.
Yeah.
We have different departments, and I was very shocked to see that the departments are mum. For me, as an ordinary South African, for instance, the reason why I adopted schools, it was to see the plight when I visit the schools. It was to see the plight of kids who are wearing torn uniform, then it touched me. Then I felt like, what is it that I can do? By the way, my foundation was born here in Hillbrow because I didn't know about homeless people. Then I started Maduna Nkabinde Foundation in Hillbrow. Right now, seeing that people are starving, I started the project with my own money, my own salary. I have grouped women in different areas to say, this is the project you are going to do. Open an account, a business, then have a business, then open an account, then put money there. Make sure I'm using my own money. I have a lot of people who would cry if something were to happen to me. Not because I want people to know that. That is who I am. That is how I was raised. We were raised to share. Where I am coming from, there are men, when they go for initiation, my father would go and sleep with them there to monitor them. Where I am coming from, that's a kind of a man that gave birth to us. So that is why for me, I was even saying to some of my friends, I said, Imela ikobele esandle. I always fight for people. I always speak up my mind. My previous job, where I was, that I was retrenched because I was fighting for South Africans for 20 years who didn't have contracts in this very same country. And you take it and report it to the department. They do nothing about it. So I ended up being retrenched. So whatever that is happening to my brother now, it's history repeating itself.
It's God channeling you back to where you need to be.
Exactly. So I think,
yeah.
But I'm willing to take the challenges. I'm saying we will be starting a podcast. I'm the president of a civil society organization, South Africa for South Africans. We are the voice of the vulnerable and the poor. We are starting projects right now where we are in partnership with some of the kings. We are starting projects in those areas. We are starting in Mpumalanga big time. So we are using our own monies. Whatever that is happening to my brother, it's not going to kill the spirit in me that God has put in me. It is in me to do it. So I will continue doing it, but praying for my brother as well and for my family or any other person who's going through the same thing.
So if someone is watching you and they want to help you, how would you expect them to do that?
They can call me. I can give out my numbers. Those who want to reach out to me, they can call me on 081 060 8244. 081 060 8244. I have, that's my WhatsApp number as well. Yeah, they can reach out.
I want you to send a few messages, right? The first message being to JMPD. And I want you to talk to them as if you will never talk to them again. What do you want them to know from where you are sitting now? There's your camera.
Okay. To JMPD superiors, to the government of this country, my message is, when people are working under your supervision, your superiors, you need to be fair. You need to do the right thing that can be done to you or to your kids. And I think honesty is what is lacking in the department of JMPD. And the only thing that I can say is that the time to be protecting people, to run and shy away from the truth, it is no more. And I want to make it clear, you have bruised us, especially as the Maduna Ndleleni family. You have bruised us, you've made us not to trust any law enforcers in South Africa. We don't trust law enforcers. Yes, we can even take the case wherever, but we don't feel there's any justice that we will get out of this case. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the second message that I'd like you to send is speak to Usia. Tell him of the kind of person you need him to be. There is this version that you talk about Usia right now. And you talk about him going through whatever he is up until the point Aphola to now as uyahamba, which is very inspirational. Tell Usia and tell him the kind of person that he needs to be. Remind him of the direction that God wants for him or what you see him becoming. Because we are so stuck on what we see. Let's go back to vision. Simtshela Usia ukuthi Sia, this is the next stage for you.
All right. Umyalezo nawo Siya kuwe ndoda efana nomfowethu. Ubomi Siya ngumzamo. And empilweni kuzabakho amahlande nyuka. And you know that zangu khuliswe uba ibali fokofoko. Into endicelayo kuwe is for kukuba uphile. Into esinqwenelayo kuwe Siya kukuba uphile. Sikufuna uphilile. Njengoba benditshilo kuwe ndisatsho nangoku. Ku situation yakho okuyo uThixo unesizathu wayenzeke kuwe. Ayenziwanga nguThixo isituation okuyo. Le meko ayenziwanga ngubawo. But ubawo phakathi kuyo le meko kukho izinto nawe unguSiya afuna uzifunde. Mhlawumbi ngelinye ixesha uThixo kusondeza kuye ngaphezulu kwezinto zonke. And andifuna uthembe nam mna Pet andifuna uthembe umsuthukazi. Andifuna uthembe udinga esekhaya. No. Ndikucela ngokuqala ngokubheka phambili ithemba lakho malibe kuThixo. Amehlo wakho wafocus kuThixo because nguThixo yazi ipain yakho, nguThixo filayo. Yes, we feel thina okokuba kubhlungu kuthi. But oyena muntu ofilisha ipain yakho ngaphezulu kwethu sonke ngulowa kudalayo. Into endinqwenelayo kuwe into yoba phila, uphilele nathi sonke. Uphilele nawe. Uphilele nesizwe sonke because ngokubantu bayibona imeko yakho. Ube yitestimony lesiya. Ngomso uzawukwazi uthi xa uthetha nabantu ubaxelela uthi ndiyazi kum yenzeka kum. Enkosi.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. I feel ukuthi everyone talks in business about your network being your net worth. And my view of this net worth has to be your network. Right? Your network is your net worth. But your worth is your network. Why? Because we have been constantly channeled back into our paths by the people around us. And the people around us are the ones who see where we are supposed to go. As children that are born into a household where we are molded and guided into becoming whatever it is that the household envisions for us. Many of us have had to find our ways because the households could not envision and see beyond their trauma. But it is the network that really channels us back into the path that we're supposed to go in. And as much as Siya felt that he had found something special there, Siya needs to find his way forward. I feel that there's a very, very big and special lesson that Siya needs to learn, as you are saying. But it is the network. People around Usia should rechannel him to what his next stage should be. And I'm happy that you as a community are there to sort of show him and guide him. because that is what is lacking in society. Number one, we don't have vision bearers.
Yeah.
We don't have people who hold us accountable to the visions and the dreams that we confess. If I tell you something about my tomorrow, it is in your best interest to make sure that you hold me accountable to becoming that one thing that I confess to be. And the second thing is, we ourselves are not committed to fulfilling our vision. And I'll tell you something that happens when you move away from your vision. You move away from your space of power, from your space of security.
True.
You speak about when Moses was sent to Pharaoh. Who could access Pharaoh's throne and come out untouched? Only when you step into your space of authority where God wants you, will you enjoy his protection. And a majority of us as South Africans lack God's security.
Yes.
Because we are not walking our purpose. We are not secure as people because we always need protection. So that's basically what tells you that we are lost. So we need to coach each other into spaces that allow us to walk confidently. If your profession forces you to seek protection beyond the Almighty, I think you are in a very murky waters.
Yes.
Person of faith always believes that God walks with them. And beyond that, there's nothing else that needs protection. Because what really needs protection is the soul and the spirit. Once that is compromised, the body will find its own ways to protect itself. So thank you for being a vision bearer on behalf of all those that are below you. Enforce it heavily at home because you are needed there most. Because I feel you talking about Usi and the young one, your son and your siblings. And I feel they need you more now, more than everything, because you are a light to them. So do not allow anything to dim your spark, because that is God's authority upon you to carry out his mission. So I think for me personally, I have learned such a big lesson with the kind of person that you are. Whatever you have imparted to everyone who is watching, you have imparted to me as well. I have replanted my feet in my mission, in what I know God wants me to do. I'm going to sit here more often and allow more people to speak. And I feel like changing the slogan to this podcast to what you just mentioned about the voice of the vulnerable. Because that is so powerful.
Yes.
And it re-emphasizes the importance of speaking out.
Yeah.
So thank you for being the person that you are. And I still feel like you were going to do a lot of things going forward, but I appreciate the fact that you stand as a light, you stand as a beacon of hope for many who seem like they are in spaces of hopelessness, even starting from Ekaya. You've sort of edified me and excited me where I am sitting, and I thought I'm a very confident, positive person, but you spilled over onto me. So I appreciate that a lot, and keep on keeping on. And we need more people like you. We need more people that are going to commit themselves to making this place better, because South Africa is spineless. Yeah, we are a spineless nation that has lost its morals, a nation that only aligns with figures and numbers. Our yes depends not on morals, but on the amount of money that stands, between us and our tomorrow. So thank you for reinforcing these morals upon us and redirecting us to better directions. I feel like we could just photocopy you, and put you in different spaces so that, people like you could rechannel us, right? And call a spade a spade. We need those kinds of people. And thank you. In your closing, what would you like to say?
Well, in my closing, I would like to thank you for having me, because you are not in a space that is loved by many, especially if you get people like us, to vent about the challenges that are happening in our daily lives, especially for the vulnerable and the poor. So I can't thank you enough, and I'm praying, I would put you in my prayers going forward so that you cannot change, because we have something that changes people in this country, So money is really changing people. And I just want to say we have a beautiful country. South Africa is a beautiful, rich country. And I believe that there are a lot of pets out there. I'm not the only one. But the problem is that people fear. They are afraid. There are a lot of activists out there that would love to, to join hands with, so that the mission that God has given to us can be shared across South Africa. I've been doing this alone in my corner until we decided to start South Africa for South Africans, as I'm saying. It was born out of activists because we feel that I'm doing this in Mpumalanga, Cape Town, Eastern Cape, so we cannot see the impact. And we started to come together, and our priority is our own South Africans. Not that we hate people who are not South Africans, but we believe before you can go outside to preach whatever you are preaching, you start at home cleaning your own house. So if more people can come out and reach out, that is what I would suggest in workplaces. We understand that the stomach is driving us. We want the salaries, but at the end of the day, let's think of our kids. Because at the end of the day, abantwana bethu, they will have the stigma because of our silence. We cannot be silent, not anymore. There are people who lost their lives, who paved the way. One of the people that I'm looking up to is Chris Hani. That's a man that when I look into his life, I relate. Yes, he might have done big things than me, but I feel that Chris Hani was assassinated for speaking the truth. So let's have more Chris Hanis out there. It shouldn't be words. The people of South Africa are tired of words. They want action. That is why we have taken out of our pockets to say we are fighting poverty, we are fighting unemployment, we are fighting inequality. That is our mission as South Africa for South Africans. We are not going to back down. As I'm saying, you will be assisting us with our podcast.
Yes.
Because we really need the only work that we will be doing as South Africa for South Africans, it will be to reach out. We have already about 74 people that have been fired. We have 400 and something people that have been fired. It's big cases that we have to, deal with. So South Africans, in a place, if you are in position of power, think and know that tomorrow you might not be here, but you are going to answer. Do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Legacy is not asset. It's not something you can touch. Legacy is passing on knowledge. If you look at biologists, they will tell you that the primary objective for a cell is to transfer information to the next one. And all that we are is a combination of cells. When you have lived in the world, you have been here, you have seen us, you have learned something. What are you leaving us? Because even if you leave us with millions, if there's no knowledge, you have done nothing. So teach us something that we can reflect on. Leave us with a lesson, leave us with introspection, leave us with hidden knowledge that we didn't know. But most of all, be an example. Live your life as an example so that whenever you get snuffed out, the message remains. Thank you so much, guys, for being with us. It's been a very insightful experience sitting with our guest today. I personally have learned a lot. I have transitioned from the person that I was before I started this. I'm at a different space now as I close the podcast, and I hope the same applies to you. If it does, please don't hesitate to comment, like, and share. Please engage with the community. Please do share any additional helpful information that can help Umamala to sort of, find the justice that she needs. If you need to contact her, if you need to reach out to her, we don't mind. We support that. But in closing, I really appreciate the fact that you've been with us from the beginning of this journey up until now. If you have just joined us, this is the Hope Revolution podcast, and I was your guest for the day. I hope to see you soon. From me, the team in studio, and our beautiful guest, it's bye for now.